Hi everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, and I'm joined as always by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I got my CEDIA tickets lined up.
Oh, so it's official.
It is official, man. I'm going to Dallas.
Oh, man. I'm excited. I know I was bummed you weren't able to attend last year, and this is legitimately the first time I'm hearing this news. You didn't tip your hand prior to hitting record tonight, so
I figured I would break the surprise on air. Yeah,
this is genuine excitement. Can you tell?
Yeah, I'm super excited to go. It's going to be a fun show this year, and we talked to Kris Gamble on our interview later. He actually mentioned that he's going to the show as well, so we're going to have a great little meetup time there.
Yeah, no, that's going to be great. I look forward to the opportunity to meet Kris in person for the first time. Kris is a regular, recurring guest on the show. We try to get him on a few times a year. If you're not familiar with what Kris does, maybe you're a new listener to the show. He's a home technology professional over there in the UK, and he runs in addition to his small business that he owns over there, he runs a very thriving social community around the live install banner, and really does a great job with that. Love his mission, love what he does with it, and was happy to have him on the show. He just got back from a trade show over there in the UK called Essential Install Live, and that was the gist of our conversation was catching up with him and seeing what he saw of significance out there at the show.
Yep, yeah, it was a good conversation. I'm glad to get him on from time to time and just kind of go over the things that he's seeing being active there in the UK, and certainly an interesting market, certainly it's a different country altogether. So it's certainly interesting to see what they do differently and similar to us. Yeah,
absolutely.
We got a new patron this week. We want to send a shout out to Avon Malin. He donated over the $5 at the $5 plus level, and really want to send our appreciation out to him. At that level, at $5 plus per month, you actually get your name mentioned, and I want to thank him for putting probably one of the hardest to say names. He kind of threw us for a loop.
Yeah,
Nordic or Norwegian name, I'm not sure, but it's definitely not letters we have here in the States.
Yep. Yeah, and I hopefully we're pronouncing that correctly, and just want to echo what you said, Seth, and thank Avon sincerely for taking the time to do that. And if you're listening and you're interested in learning how you can support the show, become a patron as well, you can check out more information about that. HomeTech.fm/support is a great way to do that.
Absolutely. And it's got a couple of different ways you can support, including our Patreon page, but you can also drop by iTunes and give us a review, or you can go on Twitter and send us a shout out. I think Jason, we kind of passed one of those little milestones there on Twitter, right?
We did. Yeah. 1,500 followers this week. Pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I have to admit, I've been doing kind of a lousy job on keeping those tweets coming out there, but we definitely enjoy the engagement we do get out of that. And if you're a fan of the show and a user of Twitter, if you're not following us already, go check us out, HomeTech Podcast, and we do our best to keep that going. Let's jump into the show here before we get into our interview with Kris. We do have a handful of news stories that we want to touch on, so let's dive in. The first one, Seth, you mentioned CEDIA. Will you be attending the keynote address? We found out today that it's going to be Amazon's director of Alexa. So a big deal, a gentleman by the name of Charlie Kindle. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that one correctly. But that to me was an interesting story. I'm curious to know if what your thoughts are on it, and if you're planning to attend that keynote.
I might not be. That the keynote's fairly early on in the week. I think it's on like Wednesday night. I think I'm either getting in late that night or early the next morning. I'm not sure, but I probably won't attend the keynote just because it's so early. But yeah, you are pronouncing that right. It is Kindle. I've heard his name many times, and it's kind of funny that Amazon does have the Kindle, but he's not over the Kindle product line. He's actually over the Alexa.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yep. But back to this story. I mean, I think this is really cool. This certainly foreshadows what I think could be an interesting CEDIA. Maybe we'll see some launches of integrations with the Echo system from some of our control systems that we use and love each day. I'm not sure, but I think that Nest came on and announced that they would open up an API and it'd be integrated with Control 4 first at CEDIA one year. I think that was 2013, somewhere in there. And they were integrated with Control 4, but they wouldn't first. It was a little bit down the road. And they they've been integrating with other companies ever since. So I'm pretty excited to see this, actually. I think this is kind of like some foreshadowing.
Yep. I think that it's very interesting. I'm sure there's going to be a chorus from certain members of the CEDIA community kind of questioning why a DIY company like this would be giving a keynote address at CEDIA. And my answer to that would be, this is the reality. So accept it. I think that, to me, it's really interesting. I think clearly going into CEDIA this year, voice control is one of the big themes that I expect to see a lot of at the show. I'm sure that's going to be a message that, whether we like it or not, is going to be drilled into our head as we visit different manufacturers is, hey, we've got an Alexa integration, or hey, we've got our own maybe proprietary voice control solutions. Who knows? I think that it's going to be definitely a broad, common theme of the show, I should say. I did also notice in this story that there will be Amazon representatives presenting 2 CEDIA training courses, which I thought was interesting. One of them is called The Business of Voice Control, and the other one is called Designing with Voice. So I thought that was fascinating. Interesting to me that Amazon is taking a close look at the CEDIA channel. I think that bodes well for our hopefully future prospects of being able to take this technology, which is very exciting to me. It's voice control is something, as we've talked about on the show before, that I feel like we've turned a corner in a sense that we're not there yet, as in the sense that it's not a mainstream technology, right? But I think we've finally gotten a glimpse of the future, and we know that it is something that consumers want and enjoy using. And so I look forward to seeing how that ties into CEDIA this year.
Yeah, I was actually, before I left my other job, I was in a customer's home, massive Control 4 system, lighting everywhere. He had full Control 4 AV system, just add power, video distribution. This is a very, very large, approaching 6-figure system. And I walk in the door and hear music playing, and kind of, it doesn't sound great. And
yep.
They've got, at least that I counted, probably 3 or 4 echoes around the house, and that's what they were using for their audio. Hey, if we think that we're getting friction because a do-it-yourself, product is showing up to be the keynote speaker at CEDIA, I think companies who are complaining really have to kind of figure out what they're going to be doing in the next decade, because this stuff is here, it's coming. And when you walk in, you see a job of it's a very well done job. It has full Sonos system, full integration with Control 4. There was no reason for them to be using the Amazon system other than it's very simple to use and anybody in the house can use it. And I think that barrier to entry of using your voice is going to be it's going to be a game changer for what we do. So I think everybody going to CEDIA just needs to get on board, because this is where things are headed.
Yep. And I think CEDIA represents a great opportunity to go into the show with that in mind and try to figure out ways that you can not swim upstream against it, but leverage it to your advantage and get out in front of it. And so let's move on to the next story here, also related to voice control, and that is the launch of a voice control handheld remote by Dish. So here we got Dish hopping on the voice control bandwagon as well.
Great. More things to yell at.
Yep.
I do like this. I mean, there's a Comcast Xfinity has a X1 system now that has a voice control remote that I actually get people think that they say, this is really cool. I really love using this. So as easy as the Amazon Alexa or Echo is to use and play music and read news and things that kind of nature, I think that the next logical step is getting a voice control remote. But the problem I have with all of these systems is that they're all different. They're all doing voice control differently. They are going to work differently because of that. Like they're not a standard protocol. They're not a standard thing to do. The voice recognition in the Alexa system is going to be much different than the Dish Network remote or the X1 remote or even the Savant remote for that matter. And you're going to have to learn how to speak to these strange little devices, which is kind of weird, but you're going to have to, I think this is going to be a skill set. Like, how good are you at going between the Savant and Dish remote and talking to them?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we've touched on that before, but I think it's a great point, one that users definitely need to think about. But I think this will clearly, assuming that it works well, of course, it'll be a nice thing for people to have that maybe don't have or need a big overarching control system, and they just want a little more convenient way to control their TV. It's got a clickable touchpad on it as well. Pretty nice looking remote. Looks pretty compact. They said it's about half the size of a traditional dish remote. Looks like existing dish customers can buy one of these for $30, so fairly inexpensive. And of course, stating the obvious here, but the big question will be, how well does it work? I mean, that's the big thing with voice control, and how much do you have to over enunciate, right, to get it to understand what you're saying? And if it's too unnatural or too unreliable, people very quickly gravitate back towards what they know works. But I will be curious to see how this is received in the market.
Yeah, I think where these remotes will start to shine and begin to shine, the killer feature for this is search, right? Because nobody wants to toggle left, right, up, down to type in Game of Thrones when you can just push a button and say Game of Thrones. You'll find it that way. So I really think that's where these particular devices are going to shine. Not so much as, I don't know what else you could do with it. I guess you can change channels and do that kind of thing. There's a couple of things, but what really stands out to me is search and being able to just dictate what you want to have happen or search for, rather than have to type it out on your TV screen, which was always a nightmare. Going back to the old Apple TVs, just a nightmare. Yep,
I agree. Well, let's move on here, Seth. We actually got some new news out of Nest this week. I could hardly believe it. They're shipping a new product. The Nest Cam Outdoor is what it's called. And, some interesting features on this product, I guess, mostly what you would expect from an outdoor camera, but also some drawbacks. I am a little... I don't want to use the word perplexed, because I get why they made the decision, but I'm questioning their decision as to how they decided to handle power. Right, exactly.
So it ships with a 25-foot power cable that kind of dips out of the bottom of this strangely designed little camera that has a magnetic mount. I mean, this is such a strange thing for an outdoor security camera that is totally accessible to anybody with a broomstick, maybe. I don't know.
I was looking around my own house, just hypothetically thinking, okay, well, if I was interested in buying one of these and thinking about where I was going to install it, where would that be? And I couldn't find a single location that wasn't within easy reach of a would-be intruder who could just, simply unplug it. And I guess Nest's argument in that instance would be, well, if it got unplugged, you would receive a notification. But, if all I wanted was a notification, surely there are, easier ways to accomplish that. So kind of self-defeating there.
Yeah, I think, as integrators, I'm sure we were all hoping for PoE, which is power over Ethernet. You would get a line, like an Ethernet line out to it and plug in that way. Nest has a pretty good Wi-Fi system set up, so I can kind of understand why they did this. It wasn't a very expensive or crazy thing for them to do. They didn't have to retool an entire camera. Because if you look at this, aside from the Monarch butterfly that's on there, I'm sure that doesn't ship with it. It looks exactly like the Nest Cam, other than the plastic housing that goes around it. So it's just kind of like the black Nest Cam that we're all used to, and being shoved into a different base, essentially, with a magnetic mount, which that's kind of what throws me off more than anything, is the magnetic mount.
Yeah. So my understanding of that is that's an optional thing for people who just want to avoid drilling altogether. There is a way to screw it into the wall. So it's not, you're not completely stuck using the magnetic mount, but they do have that as an option. Doesn't strike me as a very good idea if you were going to install it, but I suppose to me the power cord is worse. I get it. I understand why they didn't do PoE. Surely it would have driven the cost up. At the end of the day, ultimately, Nest they want to sell direct to a consumer, and a lot of consumers probably don't even know what PoE is, and getting an Ethernet cable to the exterior of the house is probably a much bigger undertaking for most people who presumably will have an existing electrical outlet somewhere that they can use. But one of the things I was thinking was, well, are they even going to give us the option? It doesn't look like it from the best I can tell. It looks like this is kind of a prefabricated power cord, but they didn't even give us the option of like a little Phoenix connector with a cable that you could field terminate. So, what do you do if you've got an electrical outlet within 6 inches of where you want to put the camera? Like, what are you supposed to do with the extra 25 feet of power cable?
Zip tie that thing up, man. Just stick it, or just let it hang down. I mean,
well, that's what most people are going to do.
Well, and you said drive up the cost. That really struck me, because this thing is $200, right? Like, if it drove up the cost I would not believe it. But because if you look at the other, like the competing wireless cameras of this type, you have an interesting article from Dave Zatz, 3 outdoor cameras better than the Nest outdoor camera. Like, I'll give him 2. I'm not going to give him the Kuna, because that's the ugly one that screws into the light bulb socket. Yeah, I'm not going to give him that one, but I'll give him the Arlo, and I'll give him the Ring, which as much as we made fun of it, it actually has a battery. Both of these have battery options.
Right.
So you can actually, the Arlo actually, I think, takes 2 AA batteries, like standard AA batteries. And, you'll have your mixed results on that, I'm sure. But, and the Ring, you have to kind of pull down and recharge every now and then. But Arlo, you get 2 cameras for $299. The Ring is $199, but it has batteries, so you don't have to worry about these wires or anything. I got to say, I mean, this isn't really a competitive offering unless you're already in the Nest ecosystem and you can figure out what to do with 25 foot of wire, because this thing is, I don't know. This isn't compelling to me. I think they missed the mark on the design completely.
I do too. I think the problem, I did a piece over at Resi Systems where I talked about this. I think the problem with this outdoor cam is that it sits on the fence. In what I mean is that it's not going to be convenient or easy enough for the average consumer to install. If they really wanted to go just straight consumer play, they would have been better off going, in my opinion, with a battery operated solution, sort of like the Arlo that you mentioned. If they wanted something that pros could get excited about, they've got their Nest Pro program. If they wanted something that we as home technology professionals could get excited and get behind, they should have done it with PoE, or at the very least, like I said, a Phoenix connector with a cable that I could easily fish through a wall and then field terminate it to the exact length that I want. But instead, it's just kind of this weird middle ground that I don't think is easy enough for the average consumer, and it's definitely not something that I'm excited about as a home technology professional. And
definitely is not something, if I try to install this on the side of my house and had 25 foot of cable going somewhere, I mean, it's not going to pass the spouse acceptance factor. Like that's a no-go already. For $200, for all that it's missing, all that it actually is, I wouldn't recommend it.
I agree. I think they missed the mark here. It's unfortunate. We finally got a new product from Nest, and I'm not a hater on Nest by any stretch. I want to see them do well. I think that big companies like that can help build awareness in the industry, and I think it's inevitable that we will see big mainstream companies like that succeed. So I say sooner the better. But I just feel like Nest missed the mark on this, and it's just not a product that I see succeeding, at least in its current iteration. Who knows? Maybe they'll change gears a little bit on it, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, well, speaking of missing the mark, Heos is back in the news, trying to push itself back into the spotlight, or at least make some of the spotlight shine on its products, when most of the spotlight is these days still shining on Sonos.
Yeah, it's very true, and I've been a little surprised by that. I mean, we saw Heos come out at CEDIA 2 years ago. So 2014 is when we really were able to put our hands on it and take a look at it on the show floor. And, it seemed like a great product to me. It definitely a Me Too product. It's very similar to Sonos. A lot of the form factor and the app. I think we joked about it on the show a couple of years ago that it really looked almost identical to Sonos, and there's actually been some litigation between the two companies. I think Sonos filed suit saying they infringed on some patents, and that's all been going back and forth. But at the end of the day, I expected Heos to have a little bit of success because they're really, at least the message we were hearing is that they were going after the integrator and letting us take a system that could function on its own very well as a standalone system, but would also have the ability to go integrate with third-party control systems like Control4, RTI, Crestron, Savant, you name it. And we've just seen slow development on that. And I don't know about you, Seth, but I have yet to see a single one of these systems out in the wild.
Yeah, I haven't seen one either. As much as a nice system it is, I think they have just such a mountain to scale that Sonos was first to market with this product. Sonos has been not friendly to the integration market, but there's been ways to use and control the system. I think everybody has got used to using Sonos, so it really doesn't stand up to be like an alternative. They're going to have to do something different to get the Heos line into people's hands without them having to buy a Sonos system or think about Sonos in the first place. And in this article, it's interesting. They're saying that Marantz receivers and preamps are going to ship with the technology built in later in the year, which I think is great. I guess both Denon and Marantz receivers will be shipping with it built in, because usually when you buy a Sonos system, if you had a receiver, an AV system, you're going to pay $349 for the Connect just to get Sonos activated onto that receiver. I think this is great for them. I would love to see Sonos built into a receiver. I'm not sure that'll ever happen, but I'd sure love to see it. But Denon doing this for both Denon and Marantz receivers, I think is going to get their numbers up a little bit more, because why would you go buy $349 more when your receiver already has pretty much the functionality you're looking for built into it? Mm-hmm. I think it's a smart move on their part. I think they should have done it years ago. And yeah, I think that they probably could have launched with this if they wanted to.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of the gist of the articles. They talk about maybe they launched a little too soon, or perhaps another way to word that is they didn't have the drivers ready quick enough. I mean, that was one of their main messages they were trying to convey, is like, we are the integrator-friendly alternative to Sonos, but kind of got put out there and
we don't have any drivers for it. Sorry, guys.
There weren't any drivers, so there wasn't a lot that we could do with it to differentiate. And like you said, I think that the big hill they have to climb is just that first mover advantage that Sonos has is still very strong. And that was the conversation we had when we initially saw this product, is are they going to be able to overcome that? And so far, I think the answer is no. But I think what they're trying to do in terms of maybe putting a little more leverage into that the fact that it is a Denon product and there is that relationship there, and Denon is a long-standing brand that a lot of integrators trust and consumers are aware of. I think it's a smart play. Time will tell if it pans out for them. This is another one where I'll say that I wish them success. I certainly don't, relish in the fact that they haven't really seemed to gain any traction. I think we could use more viable market alternatives to Sonos just to keep them honest and keep them innovating. But so far, we just haven't seen it from Heos.
Yeah, and no voice control from Heos either.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? When are they going to have voice control? I guess they got to lay a few people off first.
Oh, man, that's just ridiculous. I still see that Sonos I've seen them tweet that actually acknowledging that, they're going to do voice control. I just don't understand it. I guess I understand it. It makes sense for their product line, but just, integrate with somebody. And get the API done and integrate with the Amazon system, and you'll be good to go.
Right. Can Heos do AirPlay?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm shocked you don't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes to show you how much I know about Heos 2 years after it was launched.
Fair point. All right, Seth. Well, I think we'll move into our interview here. Like I said, we've got Kris Gamble from Live Install. Kris is a great friend of the show. We try to get him on a few times a year, and he joined us this week to give us the rundown on what he saw out at Essential Install Live. So let's get started. Hey, Kris, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm very well. Thank you for having me back on your show.
Our pleasure. We're happy to catch up with you, and we enjoy these periodic conversations with you to catch up on what's going on over on your side of the pond. And we know you just got back from the Essential Install Live show, and that's really the main thing that we're going to discuss tonight. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. But before we dive into that, give us a brief, personal catch-up. What's new and exciting in your world?
Okay, I'm still busy as ever with customized. Middle of the summer here, school holidays are starting. We've got lots of deadlines, the usual ones, sporting events. I need my big screen up before the final of this sport or that sport. And also, because it's the school holidays, people are doing some work on their homes, or they've got time off to host you in their homes. So yeah, we're busy as ever, just plugging away, really.
Sure. So you guys deal with that too. I know in our industry here in the States, one of the big ones is the Super Bowl. Every company here operating this industry has that big Super Bowl rush leading up to the big game, and everybody wants their media room or theater completed. And so it sounds like you guys have a similar thing going on over there.
Yeah, exactly the same. It's normally in the UK, it's centered around football, but with a round ball, and exactly the same. People want them set up before the final or before that first kickoff.
Right. And we were chatting before the show a little bit. I understand you got a couple new dealerships lined up.
Yeah, it's something that's part of our sort of 5 years in business, which we celebrated last month. 5 years of customized, and we decided as a business we would add a couple of new brands, fill in some gaps in our service lines. One main one was to plug a retrofit solution, but for the higher end sort of luxury property. And we've identified Crestron as our service provider there, primarily their Ping range, their Ping hub, and all the products in the Crestron range that it works with. We've also, due to higher demand in requests for home cinemas, we've linked up with company Pure Theatre just to access their ready-to-go out-of-the-box home cinema products, which range from motorized screens, projector lifts, and all the accessories that are associated with a theatre install.
Very cool. Well, sounds like things are going great for you. Happy to hear that. Let's get to what we're really here to talk about tonight, which is Essential Install Live. And I know this is a big trade show over there in the UK, and you recently were able to go out there and spend a couple of days. And let's start for our listeners who aren't familiar with Essential Install Live and just give us the high-level view. What is that show all about?
Well, Essential Install Live is brought to us by Essential Install Magazine, the most popular trade monthly magazine for installers. They have 2 events per year, a North and South show. The one that's just passed was Essential Install South, which was about 10 miles outside of London. It's attended by well over 1,000 members of the public, of our trade, and over 100 exhibitors, some very familiar, well-known brands, and then others, new suppliers to the industry. So another chance for us as a business to meet familiar faces, but also meet some new suppliers for our business.
Very cool. It looks like the North show is going to be sometime in October, later on in the year. Pretty cool. How did you like the show? Tell us a little bit about what you got out of it this year.
Well, we've been going to the show now that would be our 6th year attending, and like I say, it is the number one trade show, and it's a firm date in our diary every year. We get out of it just that face-to-face interaction with our suppliers, away from the usual email and telephone chains. We can go there and just have a good sit down, spend some quality time with our suppliers, and look ahead to what's new, and also look back on maybe what's not been working for us this year, and we can help them improve their service to us, and we can also push them to bring in some new products or make their systems a lot better.
Cool. This kind of the standard trade show thing that as a dealer, you go in and you talk to the wholesalers about getting set up with better product or not better pricing on the product, I guess I should say, you go in and ask them, what kind of deals they can do for the upcoming year. So yeah, sounds just like CEDIA for any of the dealers that are listening there. I'm sure they're familiar with that process. I saw through the grapevine that you were on a panel. It looked like with Julie Jacobson from CE Pro. It looks like she was in attendance as well. What can you tell us about that?
Well, CE Pro are a big part of the Essential Install magazine organization. Both publications are part of Electronic House lineup of trade magazines and consumer magazines that they have. So Julie was there in her capacity as editor at large for CE Pro, but she's heavily involved with CE Pro Europe, which is another publication, and Essential Install magazine. I think it's a great opportunity for her to see what's happening in the UK. I'm sure she probably combined it with a holiday with her family. The panel was a 1-hour discussion between Julie as the host, myself as a panelist, and Kris Hogg, the other panelist. Kris Hogg is a just past chairman of CEDIA Europe, Middle East and Asia. Sort of Middle East and Africa, and very, very vocal person within the industry, well known, much like myself, was active with the Live Install Twitter account, somebody with some views on the industry. So the organisers of the show asked us, the three of us, to tackle a few on-trend topics and share our views with the audience.
Very cool. That's one of the funnier pictures I saw come from EI Live was actually on the slide deck. Julie actually changed her name to Kris Jacobson to match you and Kris, which so there's 3 Chris's, essentially speaking. So I thought that was pretty good. What broad topics did you talk about there?
Some were verging on technical. So we discussed the divide in home automation between, the divide in projects between home automation and home entertainment, and how that there is a clear divide in projects in the UK with those two sort of divisions. We talked about current financial and economic situation with the Brexit vote, the referendum we've held in the UK, and how that's affected us as small business owners. And we also talked about business practices like the use of subcontractors, the use of specialists in your business, and not trying to be the master of all and trying to bring in specialists on projects.
Very interesting topics, and I definitely, you mentioned Brexit there, and time permitting, I want to get your thoughts on that. I know it's not in the home technology realm, but I am curious as to how that, what kind of impact that's going to have on your business. But let's circle back to that. I want to touch on one thing that Seth was drawing a comparison to CEDIA, and most of the listeners to our show will probably be familiar with the fact that the big trade show over there, ISE, is a collaboration between CEDIA and Infocom. But my understanding is that CEDIA used to host a show in the UK, and they've since stopped doing that. And that kind of left a void that, as I understand it anyways, Essential Install Live sort of filled that void. Would you say that's an accurate understanding?
It's very accurate. It's well known that CEDIA had a show in the UK. They concentrated their efforts into a much larger show, ISE in Amsterdam. And it left a gap. It left a gap certainly in the south of England, because Essential Install had started their own show in the north of England to service that northern install business. Then the opportunity to come up to have a show in the south, they grabbed that with both hands. It's grown from very much a smart home tech show, one-day event, to now 2 full days, and boasts exhibitors from not just residential but also a commercial background. So that bringing in that efficiency for my business, if I relate it to customized, that we can see suppliers and vendors from both sides of the technology requirements for buildings, whether it's commercial or residential.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about what you actually saw at the show. We asked you to kind of gather some thoughts on a few of the key broad topics or themes that you were paying attention to out there. And I know one of them that you mentioned here in our notes was service providers. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into what we talked about following ISE. As a business, we're actively out there looking for suppliers to our business, not just products or box shifters. We're looking for service providers to help us win projects, manage projects, monitor projects once they're completed, make sure that sub parts of projects, whether it's a lot of it we're very, very competent with, whether it's entertainment or automation, but there are things like security and fire which we do not have the expertise in that, and we don't claim to. So it was good to see providers at the show who are offering fire and security integration skills to home automation professionals, and just taking that headache away that could get you bogged down, that could get you wrapped up in a mess that you don't even want to be wrapped up in, that with the red tape surrounding those kind of services. So we saw security specialists, we saw companies providing monitoring services like the Demots solution, and Krika was a new product. And we caught up with people we met at ISE, the guys from Design Flow who do design and proposals for install businesses. And we also caught up with the people behind Project Q, which is a very simple sort of first response quoting tool for small businesses.
Very cool. You mentioned one there that I want to get just a couple additional thoughts on. It's one that I've just become familiar with recently, at least by name, and I don't know a whole lot about them. You pronounced it Krika. I've heard it pronounced Krika. My understanding is sort of a similar product to an IHG or a Domots, for instance. I'm not sure how deep you got with them, but what can you tell us about that particular product?
I didn't get to spend a great deal of time with them, but yeah, the overview is it's very much that box that sits on the network and just keeps a check on everything that's connected, built-in alerts, schedule tasks, reports for you as the install business and possibly as the homeowner. So yeah, very similar, and I think we're going to see even more of these appear in the next 12 months, more service providers to monitor the network.
Very cool. Very cool. You have a couple notes here about HVAC specialties and security specialists that you saw at the show. What do you? I mean, I'm pretty familiar with what we do here in the States. I'm sure it's similar, where you have for security, you have a security panel that's hooked up to a monitored alarm system, and that calls out to a monitoring station, and they dispatch the police or fire department as needed. It's probably very similar there. What are you seeing? What's new in that realm over there in the UK?
Yeah, very much the same kind of setup, but from our perspective, it's an area where you could very quickly get into a mess if you tried to take it on your own, in-house or with your own hands. So, and there's a lot of red tape on, if you start messing around with these systems, it drops the grading of the security or fire system and just doesn't meet the demands of what the property is expected to have. So to be able to bring in, that specialist in especially in security and fire, I just think it's something there's luxury homes maybe not getting the right service for these, maybe because of the limitations of the install business. We don't want that to happen. We shouldn't be letting that happen. So to come to these shows and meet specialists, you've got to set up these relationships with them.
Yeah, that kind of ties back into what you were saying with the back in the panel discussion you were having about bringing in specialists. I think Jason has even mentioned this before. Like when we were designing a home theater, if somebody really wants a home theater, we bring in a home theater specialist, somebody who can do the acoustic design and paneling locations, and make sure that everything is designed correctly from the ground up. Same thing can be done, with smaller systems like security and HVAC, just to make sure that the mechanics get done correctly. So I'm all for bringing in what do you call a pro, hiring a pro to get the job done right. So I'm glad to see that there's some effort and some push. I don't see much of that here in the States, because I see a lot of guys who try and do everything themselves, and it can be disastrous. But the ones that have the really cool, bespoke projects tend to lean on a lot more expertise than you realize, and to get those jobs pushed through, sometimes that's what you have to do. Let's touch a little bit on some of the video HD over network systems that you saw. I saw that Bluestream was showing off their 4K solution this year. Do you have a chance to take a look at that?
Yeah, we spent some time with Bluestream. It's a product that we use, more so their traditional HD-based T products. So, fixed format, four inputs, 4 outputs, or 8 inputs, 8 outputs, over a single Cat6 cable. We're seeing projects demand much, much more than 8 screens in the larger properties. And they're also pushing the distances further and further as properties are expanding in size or extending in size. So to be able to offer a network-based solution from Bluestream now is great for us, but we're well aware that there's existing providers with that technology, whether it's Just Add Power or Wirestorm with their Network HD. I think Geffen also have a product which I've not had a close look at, but I noticed it won an award at the Smart Buildings Awards, which also runs is held at the show every year. So yeah, HD over your network. To me, it just pushes the need to ensure that your network that you're installing, the Cat6 cabling, Cat6A cabling, that there's even more on it now. So as well as just your data demands, you're also going to start pushing high definition or 4K content around that same network. So it just emphasizes the need for that robust wired network.
Yeah, that's one of the product. Just Add Power is one of the products the place I'm working now specializes in, and setting up and deploying those systems for dealers. And it's a tricky one. It can be a tricky one sometimes, especially if you have a unconventional setup. You want to make sure that things can be done right. It's a completely different way to think about video and how you get that around the house than you were doing before with traditional HDMI matrices and HD-based T matrices as well. I think we're talking a little bit over the head of some of our listeners here, but suffice to say, these are very, very high-end, very technical systems that pipe video from a central location out over it's essentially either a standard 10100 network or even gigabit or 10 gigabit network out to TVs, which have decoders, and they decode that video back into video information and spit it out to the TV over an HDMI cable. And like you said, there's a number of different manufacturers that are selling very, very similar systems. And I'm curious to see what that looks like in the next couple of years, because I'm hearing a lot of rumors that these systems that they're selling, the 4K systems that they're selling for video distributions, are some of the only systems out there working right now. Like the HD Pace T really hasn't hit true just yet. I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there, but they're very tough to implement, especially in retrofit situations, and have all the check boxes ticked off to make sure that you are getting true 4K content out to the TV. That it's very, very difficult. And I think Jason and I have been talking about the difficulties associated with 4K and where that was going to be here in the near future. And I think we're there now. Like you're seeing those troubles start to pop up, and it's good to see that there are more and more of these, video over IP networking solution or matrices solutions that are coming online, to kind of save installers the headache of having to deal with other small issues that come from traditional systems. You see anything else there that you like to talk about? What was going on? And you have a note here about making money with TVs, which is a difficult thing to do in today's market.
Yeah, that's been a bugbear of install businesses for a long time. That it's difficult to make money on screens. But one way that we have as a business is by offering bespoke options for televisions, and with that we're able to offer mirrored screens hidden in artwork, screens for bathrooms or wet areas of the home, and now I think topical, it's the summer, we're also seeing in the UK requests for outdoor television, whether it's in a porch, whether it's in a sort of outdoor kitchen area in a garden. We saw 2 or 3 suppliers of bespoke TV solutions, which is great because there's some margin there. There's it's seen as a luxury product, but it's actually something that's quite simple to install, because at the end of the day it's just a display and it's got the same inputs as any other screen a lot of the time. I do see it as a way of making money out of TVs, which we couldn't with your standard lineup from the likes of Panasonic, Sony, LG, for example. But we can with bespoke screens. Right.
It's a great point. Good way to think about it. So those are some of the good themes, and I enjoyed hearing your input on that. To get a little bit more specific, did you have maybe a particular favorite exhibitor, 1 or 2 favorite exhibitors that you saw out of the show?
Yeah, we were asked by the organisers to have a look around, or I was, to find the sort of live install pick of the show and what caught our eye. And I tried to look around some of the smaller exhibitors just to see if there was something that was slipping under the radar. I was looking for accessories to make installations quicker and easier. But whilst having my look around, jumping back now to the security specialists that were there, I spoke to the guys at Coordinated, who are based in northwest London, and they were showing off an integration solution they've got with a fire panel and integrating it with a Crestron install in a property. And it just came up with a really easy way for the homeowner to get alerted, of a fire and where it was in the property, which, that's a vital, an essential part of a sort of large home to notify the homeowner. But they presented it in a very easy to use way. The customer did not have to head off down to the plant room or the basement to find panels and reset devices. There was some hotkeys to reset. There were hotkeys to call the integrator or call the security specialist. All from the comfort of their touch panel or their tablet or smartphone app. And I just know it's that kind of expectation that customers have, that surely I can reset it from my touch panel. Well, no, not unless you go that step further with some some integration skills. So I picked that out. I thought that shows you they're listening to the homeowners and not just pushing solutions onto them. They're actually listening to what people need in their homes.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that, and Seth, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like here in the States, the push is always coming from the integrator side to get these, fire and security companies, manufacturers to play nice and let us integrate. And it sounds like there's a concerted effort maybe on the part of fire and security firms over there to pursue the home technology market and figure out how they can work better with us. And it's just interesting. I hadn't really thought of that angle, but to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Like there's a real value add there for fire and security companies to come in and work closer with the home technology channel. And I just feel like here in the States, we're kind of having to pull them into it, sometimes kicking and screaming. I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the security market and security industry is a lot older than the home automation industry. And a lot of home automation companies were born out of the security industry. So they have taken those products that they have been using for years and continued to use them for even substantially longer period of times. And that's why you see the security systems today here in the States. I mean, they look like they're right out of the 1980s. They have not been updated. They haven't changed their programming. They haven't changed their equipment. There've been very little updates to go along with them. And yeah, I would say it's very difficult to get a security company to realize the value of being able to integrate with their system over than what their original goal is. Their original goal is to create a very secure system to monitor a house for burg and fire, and punching a hole in it for an API is kind of against what they're trying to do there. As soon as you do that, you open up all sorts of issues that are security issues. And I can see why they resist that. But at the same time, the industry is definitely headed down, or has been headed down that road for a number of years. And you're now starting to see even some of the most, the companies that have been dragging their feet forever try and introduce, basic APIs and integration modules and that kind of thing. So it's getting better, but it's not quite there yet, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I thought that was interesting. Well, Kris, we're kind of running tight on our time here. I want to know if you did anything particularly fun out there. I know that the social scene is always a big deal at these trade shows, and we go out there to take care of business and network and make some connections and learn about some new tools. But part of what we do at these shows is connect with old industry friends and hopefully go out and have a good time. So did you do anything particularly fun out there on a personal note?
Yes, at the end of the first day of the show, they held the Smart Buildings Award, which I was lucky enough to be one of the judges on that. So took full advantage of the hospitality after the show, free bar, and yeah, that's let your hair down, away from the show floor, away from projects and site, and have a after hours chat with friends and colleagues in the industry.
Awesome. Any monkey nuts this year?
No, that's just ISE. That's just Amsterdam. That is.
That's reserved for Amsterdam. Okay, got it. Well, we'll be sure to get you on after ISE as well. Let's touch on it just because I did mention it earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Like I said briefly, I'm sure there's a ton of implications, and gosh, you could arguably probably do a whole discussion about Brexit, but I just want to know, the quick version. How do you feel like this affects you as the owner of a home technology company?
Well, first concerns are prices going to come up? That's something that we've spoken to our colleagues in the industry. Have you seen any price increases? We've had announcements from suppliers saying that it's under review at the moment. Things are held, or they're waiting to see as the suppliers to the industry. But they've also said, it is likely we're going to see some price increases. Is it going to affect projects? Again, we initially got contacted by some of our customers, just saying, Kris, I think it's a good opportunity to do a bit of a budget review just to see where we're at on the projects. Is there anywhere we can rein anything in just to make sure we do hit budget? Is anything creeping over at this stage? And we've dealt with that quite quickly because people were expecting quick reactions on that. In the UK, we now have a new Prime Minister. We have a new cabinet surrounding our new Prime Minister. That's happened much quicker than expected. We thought that was going to be a long 2-month process before we saw a new Prime Minister. It's happened within weeks of the former Prime Minister resigning. We've just seen a little bit of unsettlement in the water, and as a small business, we're quite flexible. We're adapting to that. We've not seen anything cancelled, but we have heard again rumours, or possibly maybe more than rumours, of people having projects cancelled. Large residential or multi-dwelling, commercial projects have been cancelled on them. So it is impacting our businesses.
Yeah, I can imagine that the uncertainty of moving forward on a project that costs millions, or if not tens of millions of pounds or dollars, would be very, very, very risky at this point in time, just because of that one thing, uncertainty.
Yeah, we've reached out to some of our subcontractors who just to make sure that they're all okay, they're all on a good footing, just to if it does get rocky, we're all in it together, and we can all help each other to get through things if they do get rocky. But again, small businesses are actually more resilient than people give them credit for. So we'll ride it out if things go a bit wrong. But
yep,
we don't.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say here in the States. So I went straight through the Depression with 2 small businesses. I left one during the recession and went to another one and just started building from there. And since we were small and agile, we could just move along, and who cared what was going on with the political or economic. It was tough, but we just got through it. We went out and found the work and did what we had to do to keep the doors open. So that's what it looks like you may have to do for a little while, and who knows, maybe things will just stabilize there and move right along. Things seem to be moving quickly and changing quickly, that's for sure. Kris, I want to thank you very much for taking the time and coming on the show to talk to us about EI Live. If people want to reach out to you and touch base, where's the best place for them to do that?
Easiest way is to just start adding #LiveInstall to your tweets. You'll very quickly appear on my radar. You'll get engagement from hundreds of other businesses in the industry across the world. So use the hashtag if you want to get in touch directly. @LiveInstall on Twitter's quickest way to get me.
Great. Well, I just want to echo what Seth said and thank you again for taking the time to join us, and encourage our listeners to go check out Live Install on Twitter. It's a great resource. So Kris, thanks again. We'll let you go.
Thank you. Good night, guys.